Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement calls this oversight hearing to order. It is now 1:35 p.m. on Friday, November 6, 2015. Present with me today is, to my right, Vice Speaker B.J. Cruz, and to my left is Senator Frank Biagan. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. This oversight hearing will address issues and concerns relative to the Guam International Trade Center lease and the status of the Oka Point, also known as Ypao Point, and we'll be discussing what is the status of that particular property. Now, the Guam International Trade Center, after we had received a copy of the lease, the committee realized that really the entity that should be responding to questions should be the Guam Economic Development Authority, because they are the lessee for that property. The property belongs, and we're talking about this property here and this property here. That property, well, actually, this whole area belongs to the government of Guam, but we're only going to be discussing this and this piece of property here. And so prior to, Joe, can you put up the questions? Prior to earlier this week, we had sent basically questions to the Guam Economic Development Authority so that they can prepare to respond to the questions of the committee, and hopefully the committee will walk away better informed. So basically, can you enlarge that? So basically, the questions that we had posed to the Guam Economic Development Authority was, the first one was to verify if the following information is correct. And this information was obtained from the lease agreement that we were able to get a hold of. One is that the lessor is the government of Guam, and they lease the property to the Guam Economic Development Authority, a public corporation. The term of the lease is for 99 years. That 99 years started on April 22nd, 1966, and will expire on April 21, 2065 at $1 a year. The sublessee, GITC, then turned around and subleased that property to a company called Fujita Property Guam Inc. And on that, and they're the company that owns that ITC building that is situated there now. Joe, can you flip to the graphic? Okay. And so the area being leased, this area and this area totals up to about 70,000 square feet. The company that is leasing this has a lease for a total of 90 years. The initial term was for 20 years with 7 options to renew at 10 years each. And they are renting these. They started the rental on these properties at a value of 45 cents per square foot, and it has a provision for escalation of the rent at every renewal option of up to 10%. So we sent these questions, this information to GITC, and they did confirm that everything that we had on there, that yes, the lessor is government of Guam, the lessee is GITC. GITC turned around and subleased that property to Fujita property Guam, and the area, and the rent started out at 45 cents per square foot. Then we come to the rental income. And so during the initial 20 years, GITA was receiving approximately $50,000 per year. During the first renewal option, that was during the period 1991 to 2001, GITA was receiving about $55,000 per year. And during the period March 2001 to February 2011, GITA was receiving about $57,000 per year. However, during that period, the 10% escalation was waived. We don't have any information. Had GITA been here, hopefully they might have been able to provide some information as to why that 10% escalation was waived. And then during the current period, March 2011 to February 21, the rental, total rental being received is $63,000 per year. The other question that was asked of GITA was, how much is the current per square foot charged and annual rent payment is being paid by the lessee, the sublessee, which is the Fujita Properties Corporation. So, can you go to the graphic, please? So currently what the lessee is paying for this piece of property here, they are paying a rate of 55 cents per square foot. For this property here, they are paying 2 cents per square foot. The rental proceeds are deposited in the GITA General Fund. And the expenditure of the rental proceeds are not subject to legislative appropriation pursuant to an existing statute which states that the corporation is authorized to use its funds from whatever source derived in the exercise of its corporate powers and functions. We had asked what is their assessment of the, can you flip up to the next page? We had asked what is the current land value that they are, if a new lease was to be entered into today, what will be the land value for those properties that are currently being used? And the response is that the lot is not, they don't have information, at least based on the 2014 or the 2015 Department of Revenue and Tax real property tax assessment. Now, what prompted this oversight hearing on the ITC building was the fact that we had received information that the current lease was in the process of being renegotiated. And so we wanted to confirm if in fact that was the case, and to confirm what was going to be the basis for the rental fee. Is it going to be something like the Dedido Municipal Golf Course, where the land value from 25 years ago was the basis basically for going forward with the lease renewal, or was it going to be reset to use the current land value? So it's unfortunate that Gita chose not to show up today, but I did want to put on the record the information that they provided to my office, which was provided about an hour ago, and so that's about all the information that we have right now regarding that piece of property. This committee intends to. Can you go back to the graphic, Joe? This committee intends to do a follow-up oversight hearing to get an idea of what is the status of all the other properties that are being rented, the post office, Hakubotan, where FHP is, all these properties back here. These are all Gov Guam properties. And according to the law, it states that once these contracts expire, that then it reverts to the Chamorro Land Trust inventory at that time. So we will be following up with those oversight hearings at a later date. The other issue that we wanted to discuss today is the status of the Oka Point. And present here today to help us get an understanding of what's going on up there is the Director of Land Management and the Administrative Director for the Chamorro Land Trust, Mr. Mike Borja. So, Mr. Borja, if you could join us at the table, and maybe you can. Similarly, what we did, can you put up the graphic for the Oka Point? The committee provided questions in advance to the Department of Land Management Director, asking basically two questions. One is, what is the current activity at Oka Point? And on the issue of the Oka Point availability for leasing. So with this, the areas in question includes, this here is Oka Point as we know it. Do you have the graphic that shows the cultural center piece? Okay. So this is the Oka Point area. This area here is the approximately 8 acres that's being occupied by the Inadahin. I have the name. Inadahin Linatla Kuturan Samoro, Inc. And so the first question is, what is the current activity up here? So first of all, this is Chamorro Land Trust. Is this in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory, or was it taken out as a result of Public Law 25-179, Mr. Borja? Public Law 25-179 was passed, which allowed basically this piece to be leased out for commercial activities. So I guess that effectively takes it out of the Chamorro Land Trust inventory?
I don't believe so. The way we had looked at that was that it gave it to the GITA folks to do development there. But with the Chamorro Land Trust involved in it, then they were working with us to cooperate together on the use of that property. We did the determination of need because despite the public law giving it a 99-year lease, I believe, we're down to 5 years. So the determination of need was to expand that period. And but we stopped everything when we all said that there's no rules and regulations to move forward on anything else. So we haven't done anything as far as solicitation on it. I mean, if there was a solicitation, Bill 175, if it acted and passed into law, would also kill that process. But there was no solicitations put out for this.
So to the first question, what is going on here? Because I noticed that when we go around this rotunda, right here, there's a gate guard.
That area was used for disaster debris following Tropical Storm Dolphin, and it still holds debris, which we have to keep the public out from, so we don't have all kinds of other refuse thrown in there. Because green waste is also now considered hazardous waste, we have to process it in different ways, and that's just one of the requirements that's coming on down. The reason it's considered hazardous is because of biohazards that currently exist on the island, the rhino beetle being one of them and the fire ant being the other one. So that's why it has to be processed. So that area temporarily right now has also been designated for a FEMA plan for the use as a disaster debris site. And these are sites that are located throughout the island in different places where that you have to have identified and be part of the plan in order for the government to be reimbursed for any kind of labor that's required to do this removal of debris.
Who's paying for that security that's set up there every day?
I'm not sure. Maybe Public Works. I'm not sure.
It's not the Chamorro Land Trust?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll move to the issue of the... does anybody have any questions at this point?
Yes. Sure. Just to clarify, green waste is now considered hazardous waste?
Well, because we don't know where it came from, it may have come from a site that might have had the rhino beetle larva. It may have come from a site that might have the fire ants. And the fire ants, according to the Department of Agriculture and also the University of Guam, is an extremely serious matter, and it's been transported and moved around the island inadvertently over the course of the past few years, and so they've had to take action when they note, for example, the park, the Ascend Beach Park. You'll see an area that's roped off because they have identified that area to have the ant, and it's a pretty serious creature. It's almost microscopic. You can hardly see it. In fact, a whole nest, a whole colony of those ants can fit in the cap of a medicine bottle, not in the bottle, in the cap. So it's pretty bad. And then the sting that they give is very, very terrible. It stung one of my guys, and he ended up, with a very, very high fever and in the hospital.
Thank you.
All right. So to the second major topic then is the issue about the, can you go back to the first graphic, Joe, of the Oka Point leasing. In 2001, Public Law 25-179 was enacted, and it authorized the Chamorro Land Trust Commission to enter into a general lease for the commercial development of Oka Point. Now, in that particular law, it identified certain lot numbers that were authorized to be leased out. However, there was conflicting information. In Section 1, it identified certain lot numbers, and then in Section 4, the lot numbers were supposed to have been repeated, but again, there seemed to be an inconsistency in the two of the lot numbers, and it's so we need to get that clarified. And then I know that either Chamorro Land Trust or through GITA, a determination of need was drafted up, and that was the concern that we had, was that it identified a lot number which was different from the lot numbers that were identified in Public Law 25-179. So that certainly is going to need to be reconciled before, as the department moves forward. But several questions arise regarding the potential leasing of Oka Point. One is, what is it that Oka Point is, or what is it that the Department of Land Management or the Chamorro Land Trust is wanting to lease out? In the determination of need, it identified generally, I guess, this. It talked about consolidating or incorporating the cultural center into that lease, and it also identified the cliff line here, right behind the cultural center. And because the lot numbers is really kind of unclear, it appears that this leasing authority could go down here on the cliff line up to about where the hospital point is. So does Chamorro Land Trust have any idea of where those boundaries are?
Well, this is the lot that is identified with the last set of numbers as R6, and this is basically the area that we were looking at with the determination of need at the time with GITA, and that's still the shaded area, and that's still pretty much basically the same area. Now, that all being said, you know, we still haven't done anything. There's still a new process that we will most likely have to go through should the Bill number 175 become law. It stipulates a whole new process we would go through. So that would be something where we would have to prepare again the likelihood, and that's the debate we're having. A public law already authorized it, but you know, is that good enough, or do we have to go through the process again to identify the specific lots that we want to use for commercial use under the Chamorro Land Trust rules and regs?
Do you know what was the thinking behind, in that determination of need, there was some discussion about incorporating that 8 acres along with that?
You know, there was a lot of brainstorming going on, but nothing that was really, that was the final thing that was put down for that one specific area. Just brainstorming to try and figure out ways to assist really them, to provide the facilities that might be better for them, so they can have something to get whoever the lessee is going to be for that property to build something that they could use and need, so that they can take advantage of the infrastructure development that will go inside there. Anything. I mean, but we haven't got. It was all brainstormed. There's been nothing put down on plans as far as or approved by the commissioners. It was just brainstorming because we stopped everything, and even moving further. Part of this whole process is really for GITA to market the area and find out what kind of use they can get for this land. And that's really where we were going to go work from and find out what kind of use can we get from there. I mean, there's been one or two people floating around already with some of their own ideas. They've come to both GITA and to the Chamorro Land Trust to talk about those ideas, but we all had to respectfully tell them, you know, this is not the time for us to be able to discuss these issues, because we don't have any authorization yet to use the land that we felt was required, and that was the rules and regs to be in place.
In the brainstorming sessions that you guys have you identified any kind of legislative barriers that may need to be addressed?
Well, we always did, because one of the things was the 5-year limitation. So we had to figure out, do we try to go back and get something where we can get an extended period of time? That was a determination of need. I mean, you know, even this current bill 175, we're trying to review it to determine whether or not it overrides this public law, if it's made into law. And so, you know, we just want to be able to do the job the right way and not have one law interfere with the process halfway through the process, and then we're having to reset and do something, you know, different. But no, in all the process that we're looking at, everything was always talked about. If we needed to come to the legislature to obtain any other additional requirements necessary, then we were going to do that, and that was the whole process. But we didn't get beyond anything else. Like I said, the whole idea was for GITA to be able to market it, and that's the reason why we wanted to have a period of time that was greater than 5 years, because it's pretty tough to market something that's short, even though the public law had given us 99.
Okay. Now, just this piece here right now, they're there on a license from the Chamorro Land Trust, and I believe that license is on its probably its final option, and it's due to expire on November of 2026. Is that?
That's about right.
That's about right.
It's 20 years.
Okay. All right. Now, I guess during all that discussion about the possibility of somehow incorporating this 8 acres here, was there ever any outreach to the stakeholders that are in there right now to kind of hear their thoughts?
No, but the last time they came and spoke with us that I can recall was in 2011 when they came over to give us some ideas that they were going to use the cliffline side for some viewing stand, and they were going to erect a fence along the fence line. Our concern was the fence, and they actually had a corporate sponsor that was going to assist them in that aspect. But in the discussions, it was they were giving us some ideas of how they were going to use the facility for both their for their use and for potential visitors to come over and see. But I don't know where it went from there. But we were just very concerned that anything along the cliff line, especially with children, that there be a fence erected that would be greater than, I think at the time they wanted to do something that was 42 to 48 inches high, and we said, perhaps maybe it should be 6, just so that nobody can lean over easily and fall over. So that was the concern. But that's, if we do go forward in anything here, I mean, we would most likely bring them into the discussions and see how we can do this as a partner. I mean, even though their license expires in 2026, I'm sure that they would like to be able to stick around a lot longer than that, and we'd be very happy to do that. And that was the whole intent too, was for them to be part of this whole process, and to be part of the whatever ends up there, that they are not excluded out of the area. And that and the word incorporation was to mean that they could be part of whatever ends up there, so that it's, they can be given the advantage of the whatever upgrades are done to the area.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Senator Spalding?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, if I could just ask, in terms of some of the deliberations or the discussions you've had into the best use of this property, were you talking about the property as a whole, or were you talking about perhaps a development of a commercial type neighborhood in which you can then, lease out certain areas? In other words, instead of doing the whole thing, cut it up or develop it to a certain point where businesses can come in and develop it that way. Was that ever part of a discussion?
Well, not really. I mean, part of it was, the idea was GITA was going to be our partner in this whole process to be able to market it. And then from there to determine what was it that somebody wanted to do with this thing that we could all work with. And that's the whole idea. They've been trying to market it, but, with a lot of caution, just because the years that were on there, I think they were even holding it off. They're just straining to get out there. They're out all the time trying to promote Guam and the development on Guam, and this is one of their prime areas that they'd like to market. But they just need to get all the ducks in line before they try to sell something and they have everything. So it looks like a good package. I mean, 5 years was not a good package. And that's why we did a determination of need, so we could get that expanded as long as possible. And it's still, under the current rules and regs, 25 years probably is not ample amount of time either. And it's something where we would have to look at how we could expand that to a greater period of time. And it's allowed, if the bill becomes law, for us to again ask for that. And that's what we would probably do, because anything that might be built there, if it's going to be something that's going to be a part of the hotel system of Guam, it's going to be an extremely expensive project, and 25 years is not enough to amortize the cost.
The law does authorize up to 99 years for the lease. Public Law 25/179.
Correct. But our dilemma was that we believed it got overridden with the change to 5 years. That's why we did it. It had to do the determination of need.
Excuse my ignorance, but how many acres are we talking about?
I think we're talking about 38
Yeah.
38 acres.
So, again, in terms of the marking
No,
of
take
that,
that back. 48 acres.
48 acres. And I guess that goes back to my original question. As opposed to trying to lease out this whole 48 acres in one shot, has it ever been considered that perhaps there should be a planned development type of an approach in which it might be easier to lease out and have a controlled development over there that might be more conducive for that area?
Right. We don't have to lease out the entire area. That's, if somebody's only going to be needing 15 acres or 20 acres of it, then that's what we'll do. But, but we don't, this was to open up this whole area as potential, not for just one person. And definitely if 175 becomes law, it's, they can't, why would you want all that space when you can't lease out, you cannot sublease the land? And that's the intention too. We don't want them to be, we don't want whoever leases the property to be subleasing the land. That's what we want to completely eliminate.
Correct. But like I said, in terms of a planned development, they wouldn't be subleasing the land. They could technically develop the whole thing and then sublease the space, at least according to the rules that were passed.
Right.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And also just to going back to Public Law 25-179, when it was enacted, it authorized a lease for up to 99 years, and it was very specific that the revenues realized from any lease proceeds shall be earmarked for the following: infrastructure improvements on Chamorro Land Trust lands, to provide funding for Chamorro Land Trust home mortgage, small business, agricultural loan programs, surveying of Chamorro Land Trust lands, and any other Chamorro Land Trust Commission program. So it was not to go to the general fund, but instead to go to Chamorro Land Trust interests. So, Senator Ada, do you have any questions? Okay, thanks. If there's none, we did inform you that we were having this hearing, and so I certainly thank you very much. Appreciate your coming down, Mr. Benavente. If you want to state your concerns about basically what has been discussed here. Agamas. Zemi papa sige.
Papa.
O ni Candid. Ay.
Okay. Si Zeus Masi, Senator, and i-member siya gi komite. Guana, ahong nangus ti hangyang lingyan, no. You know it, gua idi and mommy, we would like to try and lease a certain parcel of property. Gi the mommy inventory, lo, part of the determination need in the STMCB. Sumano i adjoining lot. Like kung ang kapan sabi, kasi nasukuto do tati. At ang gua developer malago para develop un tono. Like na i potential lessee. You know what? Before I can even consider that, can you talk to your adjoining landowners so they can sell and then come back to me and do this? Waatang gitagwin na maneras ti. Dyan naman nyo na sa mangyayam gi license and Sinod West and Yabagaw ni matatatsang gwini licenses are revocable at any time. So sige naman nyo niya ti leases ti. Dya inadahin ilinala kuturad sa moro agogo ti license. Kasi sige mo umuspanta minada gi member ni komite, ni board members na ilik niya, wow, kalangwa po matagwin sa license sa asti. Malazabi, idukay maniluta sa utungo na bulag izamzo tawda naman matu. Naifan momento When it was abandoned by DOA back in the 90s, Pesangam Baba Gini na Pohina, Atana Pishin Island, this is the entrance. Anagagi Pagu Dos na Lati, Estigi Pishin na Manholumam. On the first day, we took a picture of it. And then once we got into the houses, Estigi Pishin Negima. Now open it, Pagu Trifle. Puro volunteers to Mogui Todusti. There's no corporate giant that even assisted us. Pura small businesses who are our neighbors in Tamuning. Even the residents who are adjoining properties to the area loved it. So we provided a community service to not only these schools in promoting language and culture, but throughout central and northern area. The only other Chamorro Cultural Center that I know is Ypao, and that serves in Manilutagi southern end. So we are the second one, Kalamamanetlan Pagus and Ypao. But we serve both central and northern communities. And for the past year, since we opened, we have had so many numerous field trips from schools. Now, tutungo afa planunia I Chamorro Land Trust. But this, anepaugulis din na closing proposal, Gwynny, I just found it awkward not to include your adjoining neighbor. Estambi, it was severed out, if I'm correct, Senator. Doesn't it have a lot number? So it was severed out. Since when does the potential lessee ever ask, knowing that it was a license, that the possibility by using the word, semantics, using the word incorporate. What does that mean legally? It means everything. I'm glad that you asked him that question regarding the usage of the entire lot. Sa titungo pago that there may be dangers in the future, just one slight violation out of that license may deem us being evicted by the sitting board members. Just one violation can have our license revoked from that area. Again, we provide a community service for everyone, not just the Tamuning residents or Tumon residents and the tourists that come up there. Manendaza Manilu, man, there's only two places that perpetuates our language and our culture. What are we doing? Chamorro Land Trust is supposed to be a place where Chamorro is perpetuated. Not just in land, but our culture as well. And we are apropos to this program. Now, a potential developer, is about to come in and engulf us by removing us from a program that was meant for us. Does that make any sense to you? Who is probably, I believe, is a non-Chamorro. So we'll kick out the Chamorro that was supposed to be, who is germane to that program, out. Because he only has a license. We'll wait for one violation. Oh, probably because they don't have a fence. And I knew it. I knew that word was going to come out, cliff. That's not a cliff. It's a slope. And those who want to play semantics, Talo, they can go on. If you've been there and you traverse the area, it's really a slope. I can walk down. It's just a slight slope down, not a cliff. Have you ever seen the Grand Canyon being gated up? What would it look like if we had a fence, an 8-foot fence around the Grand Canyon? Think about that. Only Oka Point, Pago Pero Mapuetzas, just because we didn't put up a fence. It's a slope. They are playing with words. Gusto dayam zuman and aldaman iluman. So, Guana Matsotogwisti, so that they say it's on record. We did tell them, we warned them to put up fences when in actuality, and literally, it's a slope. There's a difference. You can roll down. The other thing is that we are at the eve of one of the greatest Olympics in terms of Pacific festivals. FESPAC. It is not your typical Micronesian fair. And at the eve, we are being threatened. The center is going to host body ornamentation of all the 27 nations, medicinal iamot, dyan, apa di mo na, tres, huh? Huh? And tattooing from all the 27 nations. And at the eve, we may be threatened for an indirect eviction. Senator Matt, in Gagogawadzurumito, that this paper be disposed of. Tada naman liyo manggogo. I know. Nangiling niya, there are marching orders from the front office. I've been there. Okay. I've been a political animal myself. Pesutunga zangin marching orders este. There's no doubt in my mind that that's why I just couldn't believe it. You know, when I heard about it, like, oh, nah, it's hearsay. I couldn't believe it. Anilig niya na a part of the consideration. Malaban ben incorporate. Namanyaw doon na palabra. Incorporate. And you know, Wes, you know that. It's really scary when you say incorporate, especially to a licensee. So the center is pleading with the sitting senators of this committee that what you can do with this determination that was an executive submission is throw it in the waste bin. Por favor. If they want a clean slate, then stick with that green area and stick within the area and be good neighbors with the Chamorro Cultural Center rather than indirectly threaten them from being evicted. Since the 90s with Nacion Chamorro, but this, call it a threat. So it brings me back in the days where Sidipuntu Angel used to sit with me in things like this and in public hearings and in protests. And I'm more than willing and ready to again get off from my reclusiveness and get back and do what's supposed to be done. Man, Lou, man, a lot of you guys, man, ko, leader is to lead, not to follow. So we elected you guys. Putihifan lay, hapatitanan itsa There's nobody else. Panuit, tell me, Kogwa Otru Chamorro Cultural Center that provides schooling. I teach there in one of the houses, history, Guam history and Chamorro language. Como in nai developers, these nai car blunt, I guarantee you, we don't, there's too much dust there. They're carving in that area. We have a hotel. Throw them down in a corner. So incorporation meaning the possibility of them administering everything that we do up there. So it's clear. There's a demarcation. Claro ilangui na it was severed. Leave it at that, Senator, por favor. That's all we're asking. Is leave us alone to do our job. And that's to perpetuate our language and culture. Whatever is left, man, lingwaheta. I love, everybody loves what we're doing up there. Everybody's voluntold to do things. I am retired from being a government employee. I've done my duty as a government employee. So I put my entire time up there. And so are the people here who are artisans. They're here volunteering to try and teach the next generation about our culture. So we can never forget that. So that the Marianas would always produce who we really are, our identity. To do anything less, man, to me is a tragedy. And this is a tragedy. These types of proposal. All the time we thought they were going to be good neighbors. Lo and behold, I didn't know that they were going to pull a fast one on us. I didn't know this. It's the Guasamunganyo and Ed, you better go down there. Because something is going on. Something is brewing again. So I leave it to you guys, man. Protevan, adjudaham, jan defendiham. Hasu di jota of ni para to protehi jan defendi ilenguaheta, i kuturata, i tanota, i antita, i aireta, i hanumta jan todo. Those are things our kids every day reside in public schools, even where I teach. That's all I ask. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, yeah. Does anybody have any comments they want to make? Questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I just want to basically confirm what Mr. Beneventi said. This area where this is at is where I grew up. So I do understand the terrain, and he's correct. This is not a cliff line. In fact, I used to play and run down all the way to the beach from there and back up, and I thought it was the greatest thing. This is not a cliff line. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
I've lived on both sides of the hospital. Back then, that used to be the doctor's housing on one side, so that was the very first neighborhood that we moved into, and then we eventually moved to the other side of the hospital, so I'm very familiar with that area as well. So this whole Oka Point, I am quite familiar with it. I basically adventured through the whole property as a young lad. So what Mr. Beneventi says about the cliff line versus a slope is definitely true. I just wanted to make that point of information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Nelson, you signed up, you wanted to give oral testimony? Or did Mr. Beneventi pretty much summarize the concerns? Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you can take some time. Hago optimo no shmain no mamfit ma pero un cuento so go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Speaker, Senator Hogan, Padan Centrada. Thank you for there are a lot of questions as to just what we're getting ourselves into. Mr. Salas, Department of Land Management, the Chamorro Land Trust should really sit down and try to evaluate just where we're going on this Oka situation. I hope that we're not catering to investors, potential, who have the political connection to get in there and consolidate the site that we're talking about. What are we trying to do? We're trying to protect our culture. There's no price for culture. Taza, presun, ikuturata. Rio fatto si marca bodega, rio fatto I lati, unico. They cannot, and they'll never provide the cultural perpetuation to give it ordinary. Mr. Beneventi, then todos man involved in Morena Carrera. The idea to consolidate as I say, stupid. Por favor, please do not touch or do not consolidate the Oka Point for the interest or benefit of the ghost developers, which are just lying around, walking around the hallways. I don't know whether come to this hall, but I know they're over at Loop. They're over at ITC. We as senators must take the stand once and for all, trying to identify what are we and what are we trying to do. The fact that to consolidate is a manifestation that there is or there are plans, future plans for developers who want to take advantage, who want to increase their wealth, who wants to become millionaires. Why can't we let our local people do this? Why can't we give Ed and all the other people involved the opportunity to perpetuate a culture? I know there's a cultural center down near Nico. If you guys want to see it, go down, take picture, and look at it. That place, about several years ago, looked good in documentation by Mark Abodega. Beautiful. They plan to do this. They're going to have Carabao, boat building, they're going to have Minardo, all this. Chamorro. Go down there now and look at it. It's nothing more than a deception or disguise as to what they want to do. Perhaps they want to take it out and improve the culture center that Mark Abodega is trying to pursue. It's a conflict. But let me tell you folks, I'll support Ed Benavente and his group 1,000%. Then Mark Abodega, who has all the political connection, he's the chairman of GVB. He has the political connection. He has the backing. Itane, hamyun senador. Por favor, espia, je proteger interes tato Guam. Mga man mamano. Mga man maano. Soften ay. Ang Guam man motuman. Man kodi papape. Hotel hoy. Wine and dine. Por favor, reconsider. Look at it. Look at the whole cultural picture. Culture is not just weaving ad. Culture is not just Mokamzu, as they have been advertising it for the Fest Pack. Culture is more than this. It's priceless. There's so many other things that I'd like to say, but I want to beg with you. Please, senators, sit back. Don't be in a rush. And try to see what is really best for our future generation. You and I are not going to be here long enough. Furthermore, before you do anything with Oka Point, I suggest you look at the interests of Tom Frank's Godzu family on that side. We almost gave Tom Frank 7 hectares or 7 acres some time ago. because the family claimed, and we discovered that they do deserve that Tom Frank owned part of that Oka Point. But because of one stupid vote, Tom Frank cried, man. Comantes Tom Frank. Perez brothers. Reevaluate and reconsider. I think Mr. Bora and other people can check with Tom Frank family. If you're going to give Mark a bodega 17 hectares, I'd rather that you give it to the Perez family and let them live it. Let them develop it. Let us tomorrow develop it. Ako Kazakhstan na sinata. Manahonay pa Hong Kong. Manahonay pa Taipei to bring all these people back. Kazakhstan na sinata. Do we have any more power? Do we have anything more trying to offer our own people as to what they can get out of this island? I say to Frank, the Perez family deserve a portion of that Oka Point. You may not recall it. Some of you were not even born. Excuse me. But to Frank's property, from St. Anthony all the way up to the Greyhound, was used for hospital by the Navy to take care of Chamorro after the war. They were so generous. They helped this island out. Why can't we, either the committee or send somebody and divide the family and check the interest on this property? If anything deserve Oka Point, I say it's the Frank family or Chamorro people. Tihongi na Taza Chamorro Sina Mandana for develop Oka Point. Tihongi na para Lote Marca Bodega how is wrong for develop Oka Point. Kuasya sa Marutambi Sina ta Angoko or Sina Matsogi como Tanay Itsansa oportunidad do Fanlala Ginigitanota. Why can't we do that? Being a senator, I know you're looking for votes, but for God's sake, when it comes to the culture, protection of the rights of our people, even the American Indians, I don't know if you are aware of it, Judge, they're suing the federal government on what they did to them many years ago. They're going to Hague or Switzerland, World Court. But if the Indian has just found out that they were slaughtered, the land we're taking, when are we going to wake up? When is tomorrow going to wake up and realize the Spaniards massacred ancestors? That's the fact. But now we're trying to make the Spaniard look good. We're bringing in Salvatores. But there's more to it, I don't. And the younger generation are waiting for Hamzuni and Marcus to show them, to offer something, what is good for them, for now and the future. My dear senators, I know that there are other issues, but this to me is very critical. Do not consolidate. Do not remove Benavente and his group from Oka Point. try to offer other Chamorros. Of course, this Chamorro Land Trust, I'm pretty sure that we got some Chamorros that can get together and develop Oka Point for the benefit of the people and also for them to gain money. We should not go to Hong Kong bringing all this other outside business. No, it's Amuruta. Por favor, give us a chance. Please, senators, for the sake of our future generation, so that they can understand just where we stand, just what we believe. Every day we recite the Irensa. I got one in my pocket. Kathy, McCullough is trying to teach me in his pocket. But it's that kind of mentality and philosophy as to what we want to do with the Chamorro Land Trust. Por favor, I know that Mr. Bora has a plan also to bend the casco. Por favor,
Okay.
Chamorro Land Trust should get out of the coal business.
Okay, let's stay with Oka Point.
Oh, good point. I want to go up to my place.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so those are just some of my points that I would like to emphasize with you folks. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senators, Vice Speaker, Chairman Ara, Senator Dragon, Senator Banaj, and my sobrino, Tony Ara. Please get together. There are issues that can separate the two parties. But when it comes to the disposition of the Chamorro Land Trust, land and properties, there should be one mentality. We guys get together and do just that for justice, for the sake of our future Chamorros. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thought I was improving, but probably still not. Probably next time I'll try to improve my voice. But thank you again for this opportunity, and I wish you all good luck. Thank you, Senator.
So with that, I'm going to adjourn this oversight hearing, and it is now 2:37 p.m.